Hello, learner. Welcome to Mr. Quickest Teachers. In this lesson, I'll be analyzing Kevin Halligan's poem, The Cockroach. Now, this analysis is part of a course where I've analyzed all the 15 poems in your GCSE. That's if you're writing it in the UK, or IGCSE anthology. IGCSE if you're writing it internationally. So you can subscribe to the course that contains all the 15 poems for only £5 a month, or you can buy the entirety of the course for £45 a year. That means you get to save 3 months in subscription of £15. Now, the link to the course can be found in the description. Additionally, we provide tuition as well. So if you need help with the other components of English literature, the prose, the drama, the unseen paper, or help even with the poetry aspects, you can sign up for our tuition services. Again, you find the link in the description. Now, additionally, if you're struggling with writing or you need help with any other subject in the GCSE or IGCSE subjects, you can send me an email at mrq@mrquickestteachers.com. That's mrq@mrquickestteachers.com, or you can send me an email at mrquickestteachers@gmail.com. You find them there on the link, so you can pause so that I can copy them down. Let's begin our analysis. Now, let's begin by speaking about the poet. Kevin Halligan is a Canadian poet. He was born in the 1960s. He has 3 poetry collections to his name. He's lived for several years in England and Cambodia before returning back, to his home country, Canada. His most famous poem is this poem, the poem we're going to analyze in a bit, The Cockroach. He also publishes individual poems in literary publications. Now, this is how the poem appears in your anthology. It's actually a sonnet. In terms of the summary of the poem is about this person who observes the actions of a cockroach as it goes around doing all sorts of things. Now, towards the end of the poem, he has like this epiphany or epiphanous experience where he realizes that he sees the actions of the cockroach in himself. That essentially is the summary of the poem. Let me begin my analysis by reading the poem, The Cockroach by Kevin Halligan. I watched a giant cockroach start to pace, skirting a ball of dust that rolled the floor. At first, he seemed quite satisfied to trace a path between the wainscot and the door. But soon he turned to jog in crooked rings, circling the rusty table leg and back, and flipping right over to scratch his wings, as if victim of a mild attack of restlessness that worsened over time. After a while, he climbed an open shelf and stopped. He looked uncertain where to go. Was this due payment for some vicious crime a former life had led to? I don't know, except I thought I recognized myself. So that's a reading of the poem. Now, the poem opens with the first person pronoun I. So it reveals to the reader that the speaker is narrating a first-hand experience in the first-person point of view. Then, watched a giant cockroach start to pace reveals the speaker's very intentional observation of the insect. So he observed the insect intentionally. The giant also reveals the colossal size or the huge size of the cockroach while he walked, at a steady pace, because of anxiety or annoyance. So before he just began, he was just observing this cockroach, as he began to, move at a steady pace or walk at a steady pace. Now, the first thing we see in the second line is the word skirting. So skirting provides vivid visual imagery of it. That's the snake, the cockroach, going around the dust to avoid it. So it was skirting it. It was going around it to avoid it. While ball of dust provides vivid visual imagery of a perfectly symmetrical circle of dust. So it's perfectly symmetrical. Now, skirting means, like I've said, avoiding by detour. So you're going, you don't want to come in contact with something, so you're taking maybe a longer route or something. Now, the detail that wrote the floor personifies the dust. So we see the use of personification there. So it personifies the dust and presents it as a driver that is driving the floor like a car. Now, observe the use of multiple verbs in the poem. Pace, skirting. Those are like the different actions that the cockroach takes. Then we see the use of anthropomorphism in the third line. It says, at first, he, that word there, he, is an anthropomorphism because it gives human or human-like attributes to this cockroach. Now, at first, he seemed to quite satisfied to trace, reveals the initial attitude of the insect, and is an anthropomorphism, the use of he, that attributes human characteristics to the cockroach. While to trace provides vivid visual imagery of him, that's the cockroach, drawing a copy of a map on the ground. So he's designing it on the ground. So it's also like tactile imagery as well. This feeling of, this imagery of feeling. So at first, it seemed quite satisfied to trace. And the fourth line, we're told a path. Why is it tracing? A path between the wainscot and the door. So the wainscot is the paneling, that is usually attached to a door. And the description, the path between the wainscot and the door, provides detail of the range. So how far it is going. So essentially, where it's starting, the wainscot, and then where it's ending, the door, in terms of the movement of the cockroach. That is, he created a walkway from the paneling to the door. That is essentially the movement of the cockroach. He started to pace, he sketched the ball, and now he's tracing. And we are told where from the beginning to the end of where he's tracing. In the fifth line, it says, but soon he turned to jog in crooked rings. This signals the quick change in the action of the cockroach. So it seems as if he cannot carry out any action for an extended time. He seems to easily lose focus, essentially. He's doing this and then suddenly shifts. He's doing this and then suddenly shifts. So it signals the quick change in the action of the cockroach and provides vivid visual imagery of him quickening his action. But soon he tends to jog in crooked rings. So he's getting a bit more, animated. He's getting a bit more active. So, but soon he tends to jog in crooked rings, tells that he's quickening his action, running at a steady pace in twisted circles. In twisted circles, he's just going. The circles are not perfect, it's just going around in a funny way, but then it's like a ring, but then it's not a perfect ring or in the rim of symmetry that we saw when we were talking about, the ball of dust. Now, in terms of the themes of the poem, we see the theme of nature. Man and nature, and then the similarities between man and aspects or things in nature. So man can see himself in various aspects of nature. He can see a manifestation of his attitude in nature. In terms of the tone of the poem, we see that the speaker is very interested. He watched. It's also very detailed in the movement of the cockroach as he paces, as he skirts, as he traces, as he jogs, as he circles, as he flips. We see multiple actions. So, and it's very detailed. It shows that this speaker observed the cockroach in detail. Then we also see the epiphanos, the tone of epiphany as well. Except I thought I recognized myself. That's the tone that I suggest that this speaker has like an epiphany. It's like he's come to realize that I'm just living my life, without any aim, or there's this aimless movement or progress without aim. Now, in terms of the point of view of the poem, the poet blends the first person point of view. So we see the repetition of I multiple times when the speaker is talking about what he sees and then his life, and then the third person as well when he's speaking about the cockroach. So we see that the speaker is also a third person limited narrator. So we see that when he uses the pronouns he, his multiple times, in reference to the anthropomorphized cockroach. Now, in terms of the form and structure of the poem is a sonnet. Essentially, that means that it has 14 lines. But then it has an ABAB, CD, EFGEGF rhyme scheme. So observe that there's this idea that the first and then the third line, second and then the fourth line rhyme, and so that's what we see. But then in the second portion of the poem, it shifts, right? So that is the rhyme scheme. I think the poet uses that to make it essentially like a poem that the reader will not forget easily. Okay, and I also think he also does that as well as a way to show that it's like a cautionary tale, using his own life as a cautionary tale, and the way it's reflected in the Cockroach to speak to the reader. The poem also sees the use of iambic pentameter. That means that each line has 10 syllables. So I watched a giant cockroach start to pace. So we see that each of the lines, you can try it, each of the lines have 10 syllables, but each of them has 5 metric feet. What that means is that there's an unstressed syllable, I, then watched, which is long and then stressed, right? And I think that gives the poem rhythm and make it sound like the da-dum sound, something that is like a drum. It's quite rhythmic in the way it's read and then rolls off the reader's tongue. The poet also employs enjambment multiple times in the poem, and we see that in the flow of words from one line to the next. So, for example, we see that when he says here that, that's in line 8 to line 9, as if the victim of a mild attack of restlessness. So there's a flow of words from one line to the next. And I think the speaker uses it to present there are times on hindered movement of the cockroach. The cockroach's movement is not hindered. There are aspects where it's quite free to move as freely as it wishes. So that is, essentially that about the form and the structure. And I advise my students that when you're answering GCSE or IGCSE questions or A-level questions, whatever it is, in literature about poetry, you have to speak about the form and structure of the poem. It's imperative if you're looking to get either a grade 9 or a grade 8, or you're looking to get either a grade, an A star and A, you have to, speak or write about the form and the structure of the poem. So here you have it, Kevin. Halligan's The Cockroach has been simplified. Like I mentioned in the opening of the poem, this analysis is part of a course where all 15 poems have been beautifully analyzed with sample A star or grade 9 essay answers, as well as predicted questions as well that you can try your hands on to check if you have a proper understanding of the poem, right? Because sometimes you listen to the analysis and you think, yeah, I got it. And then when you're given an essay, for example, you're asked, how does Halligan strikingly presents, the speaker's attitude to the cockroach in this poem? How do you go about it? So you need to know how to write essays, to get like a very good grade. So you're not hanging around, F's and then D's or C's thereabout, when you want to, get a better grade. Now, additionally, we also provide tuition as well. So if you need tuition services, just click on the link in the description or, visit www.mrquickesteachers.com and then sign up there. There's going to be a form. You can, write out what you hope to achieve in the tuition in the tuition sessions, and then that will be, we'll see how best to make you achieve that. Now, additionally, we also provide help with the other subjects, the sciences, math, English language, geography, history, sociology. We have a group of very experienced teachers that can help bring out the best grade and build up your confidence to make sure that you get like a good grade, the grade you hope to get, a very very great grade. For me, I always like A less than grade 9, so that's what I push my students towards. But we can help push you to achieve a good grade. Now, thank you for joining the lesson. Until next time, see you. Bye.